Okay, well, let's see if we've got it from these two next players. It's going to be Glory versus Patra coming right up. And Patra has, looks like Shielded Warrior. And I've looked at the wrong one. I got confused then. I was looking at Glory's list.
Shield.
Yeah, Warriors are shielded across the board. Let me work this out properly now. And and then the Druid has been banned out, and the Priest. So Priest has been banned here. I like this. I approve because Priest kills you a lot. So what do you make of these? What do you make of these Warriors actually being shielded here in these matchups?
Well, it's very, very difficult to get into these players' mindsets with how the shield and ban works, because we've seen a couple of tweets from the players where they're thinking, okay, I'm going to shield this because I predict that they will shield this. And then, of course, that inevitably goes completely wrong and they shield something else completely. What I would guess here from Patra's side is that she shields the warrior expecting a shield on the priest from Glory's side, and she wants to get at least one decent matchup 100% locked in. I wonder if both players were thinking that. And, well, Patra here with her ban on the priest is thinking, okay, I've got myself one good matchup for the priest. It's still priest, though. I'm just going to ban it out of the way so I don't have to face that. And what a lot of players would say is effectively giving a free win.
Yeah, I think I am I'm online with this because I think banning away a deck that feels that powerful, that even a matchup you think is okay, I think is still worse than other matchups you can have that are better.
It's not a counter.
So look at, for example, I think the big boon here for Patra is Glory, it hasn't brought Druid, right? And that means that the Warrior Shield feels a bit better because you can play Warrior, ban Priest, and kind of ban Druid because Glory's not brought it.
Yep.
So now Warrior versus Shaman, which I keep harping on to you about, which I actually think Warrior is good versus Shaman. If people disagree, that's fine. But every time I see the matchup get played out, I feel like Warrior has the opportunity to just clear everything Shaman does, outside of busted things like a turn 4/8 drop with Mogu, of course. But in general, I think it's quite powerful. So I think Glory not bringing the standard of Druid and choosing to keep Shaman, which I think is the deck that's dropped the most in favor of Priest, is kind of give Patra maybe an extra ban to some extent.
But Glory's ban, it does just still feel weird for me, both in terms of his own defensive, obviously with the decks he's brought, and also his offensive capabilities and how he counters Patra's lineup. The Druid, to me, felt like one of the better decks he could face up against. His Warrior, chock full of removal. He's got this new kind of list we're seeing from some of the players with a Whirlwind in there, 2 Plague of Wraths in order to go through all the removal that is necessary against Druid, sorry. And then, of course, he's got the Zoo and the Shaman as well, which I think are 2 reasonable decks against Druid.
Yeah, that's a good...
I'm kind of surprised.
I think, number one, he could have banned Priest. You know, like that's statement one as far as I'm concerned when it comes to pick and bans. Have they shielded Priest? No. I'm banning it then. That's as far as I get. But, as you can see, as we go into match number 2 of the day, Patra on the top on the Priest, Glory on the bottom on the Warrior, and most importantly, look at those inverted Grandmasters scores. 5-1 for Glory, rocking the top of the division. 1-5 for Patra. This win might be the win that keeps Patra in Grandmasters. You never know.
It's looking pretty good for her. That's an excellent point. You know, it was obviously a very rocky season for her last season in Season 1. And things, unfortunately, haven't turned around thus far for her. But, like you said, this could be the turnaround. We've seen some upsets already for a very similar match to this that we saw last week. Tom 60229 versus Blitzchung, which was a similar situation. Tom, top of the group. Blitzchung, bottom of the group. And we saw the upset happen. Blitzchung was able to take his first victory. And Patra being able to take a second victory here is, I would argue, crucial for her chances to get through to the top 4.
Yeah, already though, looking at this, the way the game's playing out, you do not normally see Priest super behind on board. But now with 1 drop into 2 drop, Glory's looking pretty good. But one thing you need to note versus Priest is there's the usual game plan of play stuff, buff it, kill him.
Yeah.
There's the alternate game plan, which I think might be, for me, the card that makes the archetype as powerful as it is. It's going to sound maybe a bit random, but Psycho Pump actually gives you a completely different way to play the deck.
Yeah.
As well as, there's the usual recovery, right? You play a minion, they kill it, you get it back. That's level 1.
Yeah.
But level 2 is, you can play the game way slower because you have a card that makes an incredibly sticky minion in your hand. And Patra has 2. So although this looks kind of bad, and I'm not saying it's great for Patra, she has 2 Psycho Pumps and a Blade Master, which means Patra, in a few turns, this could just look wildly different, especially with these trades. And Patra just, boom, I've got the board. Done.
I would argue this is one of the best anti-warrior hands it's possible to have.
Yeah, and it doesn't look correct, right? Because of the way the first few turns came out. But coin into Psycho Pump, and here we go. It just shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah. And I think with the pickup of Inner Fire as well now, I really like this play from Patra because I think there was some consideration for just going for Injured Blade Master to try and res, obviously, a higher attack minion. But I think now the fact that she can go for Inner Fire to buff up its attack once she's got it back up to the full 6 health, I think is perfectly reasonable.
I've got more left in me.
Slightly more difficult turns now for Patra, because if this was against any kind of an aggro deck, a tempo deck, this would be the easiest Psycho Pump of your life. You wouldn't even think about it, you'd play it and you'd win the game. The game would end if this was against Battle Crush or anything like that. Excluding Mind Control tech, but either way. The Warrior has removal, so it becomes a lot more difficult as to how you approach this here. A second Psycho Pump, if it was met with a Brawl in 1 or 2 turns, could mean that she doesn't have the necessary refill, which is why I like her deviating from that line and playing the Blade Master instead.
Yeah, I like this plan a lot. And now, these are the turns I always speak to you about in terms of the deck is not quite as straightforward as people think it is. It can be, but it also can be quite complicated. This circle,
absolutely.
This circle might look like, this just looks straightforward. Look at all the health you could gain across the 2 minions. But she doesn't draw any cards with this. And also, there's 7 health on board. What actually does anything here?
Yeah.
2 Warpaths don't cut it. Although I will mention Warpath, Whirlwind Word, which is something Patra has to bear in mind because Glory is playing a slightly different style of this warrior, a new style, but Patra has also submitted this warrior, which means she won't. I don't think she'll be caught off guard by a Whirlwind because she has submitted the same list, more or less.
Do you know who originated that list?
Because I've seen it kind of slapped me in the face when I read the list. I was like, where's this come from?
It feels like everyone's gone for it this week in Asia Pacific, and I wonder if it was maybe a player who we don't get so much recognition to in the English-speaking scene.
What's weird for me as well is I've been playing a ton of Hearthstone this week, and that I can recall, I haven't seen a single Whirlwind play.
Me neither.
So it's not as if I've seen it on Ladder and gone, oh, okay, this is picked up, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, I saw it in decklist submission by like 5 different players. And I think there's some in NA and EU as well.
Yeah. It's cool. I like that we're seeing more deck innovations from non-GM players, because it does feel like at the moment they have somewhat of a monopoly on how the meta is shaped in the eyes of the public. And I think there's a lot of very strong deck builders who are getting more recognition. Like we saw, Blastoise, a player who's obviously not especially well known, climbing to very, very high ranks with Control Shaman. Wyra as well, very high ranks with Control Shaman.
Honestly, whenever he tweets a deck, it's good. It's just good. And I just tell people, it's good.
Yeah.
If someone's like, oh, what's that list? Is it any good? It's Wyra's list. Yes.
Of course.
Because he's one of the best deck builds I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I think in the world. Because he's just consistent for every class.
Yeah.
It's insane. His hunter decks are insane.
Yeah.
But anyway, I do agree. I'm just waiting for Braggy's... I knew you'd laugh. Braggy's faceless Geppetto hunter to really kick in.
Yeah, I bet you.
Hatul got, I think, top 10 with it.
Hatul could get top 10 with a spatula. He can play the weirdest, jankiest, garbage decks and still do really well with them somehow. I'm not wrong. I think he's a good player.
Do you hear me disputing you, Derek?
I felt a wave of disappointment.
That's just normal.
Yeah, sorry, we're English.
But now again, Patra's making the choices, and the Nef set I kind of like, because I think 3 minions is the sweet spot. I think 3 minions is fine. Obviously, at 2-3 with this board is a little bit meh to a brawl. But honestly, if Glory's brawling this board, then cool. It's kind of okay, because there's still Amit as well.
Yeah, I think this is just about an acceptable board size. One of the things that I've been trying to do as Priest against Warrior is deliberately throwing caution to the wind a little bit more, because I often find that when I'm playing this matchup, one of the things that goes wrong for me is I play around removal pieces too much.
Right.
And what I find is that, I'm playing like, this is a little board, they clear it off a little board, they clear it off a little board, they clear it off. Whereas if I'd just gone everything at the start and say, if you don't have Brawl, I win, I often find that can be slightly more effective. But I think that's maybe me imposing my own perception of the matchup and my own experience in a situation where it doesn't necessarily apply. Because I think here for Patra, it was a reasonably big board, as you said. If the brawl comes down here, it's not great, but she can still carry on with a strong game plan.
Right. And now the follow-ups, there's kind of the same board again, if Patra really wants to. There is Injured Blade Master. I do wonder when, and Patra's made the choice for itself now, I did wonder when this Psycho Pump hits the board. Because a part of me was thinking, has the game progressed enough that you can wait for Amit and just go Amit Psycho Pump? Because that turn is filthy. It is absurd. And as the game's ticking on, Patra's going to be hitting Cleric soon.
Yeah.
So card draw will happen. And because she's not doing anything, I mean, an 8-8's pretty good, but considering there's nothing explosive happening right now, can Patra kind of slow play this?
I think I like this a little bit more from Patra because you need to think about what your opponent can do, because as Priest, as soon as you lose board, your odds of winning diminish drastically because, again, it's a board control deck. The only way you deal damage is through having minions on board. And say, for example, she hadn't played this Psycho Pomp and our Mega Dillo had come down. That's when things start to go very wrong. I suppose she could have just played Inner Fire and
I was thinking Inner Fire, Blade Master, heal. So then you've got an 8-8, a 4-5, push phase as the second option. I'm not saying this is bad. I just, I think now if the board gets cleared, there really is no refill. There's a Blade Master and a Dream.
I've got to be honest, I was quite surprised there to not see a Warpath and a Plague of Wrath from Glory.
Glory feels safe?
Should he, though, is the question.
I think so. He just saw an Inner Fire played on an 8 health minion.
Okay.
Why would Patra play Inner Fire on 8 health if she had Divine Spirit, right?
Yes, I suppose I should be more clear. Not is he afraid of dying on this turn, is he afraid of having to use the Warpath Plague of Wrath next turn anyway? Like, what situation does he have to get into where this is good enough to the point where he doesn't just have to go for the Plague of Wrath next turn because he's facing the same threat?
I wonder.
I guess he just wants a second option. So the more cards he draws, maybe he gets to another Brawl, maybe he gets to another Warpath, maybe he gets to another Plague, which means that when he uses a big removal like the Warpath Plague, he has a backup if Patra refills.
It's true, and I guess, it was heading into turn 7, he hadn't seen Born Sandy, which could very possibly have come down for the next turn.
And the board did get wider.
It did. And, I'm very possibly letting Cast Division get to me here, because I could see Patra's hand was very weak to that exact play from Glory. But I think going for the Warpath Plague of Wrath on that turn, and then following up with the Warbear, I think would have been a fantastic way to lock down the board in 2 consecutive turns. Well, either way, you can go for it now, like you said, and Patra is left in a dire situation.
And this is the problem, and even Priest can whiff a little bit, and by whiff, don't get me wrong, the opening hand was almost God mode for Patra, but the longer the game goes on without a Cleric, look at this hand. 1 Cleric this game, I think Patra would have just won by now easily, because there's been 2 Circles, there's been 2 Neficent Ritualists. Even if you minus one of those good cards and add a Cleric, the difference is worlds. It's insane.
I think Patra's done a good job, honestly, to get this far. I think her first few turns, like I said, I think there was some consideration to maybe throwing caution to the wind and going a little bit more all-in, like I was talking about. But I think, having said that, it's incredibly difficult to do, and it's probably not even correct to do so. I think Patra, in this instance, gave herself a decent enough threatening board each turn, which meant, of course, that she was still able to threaten lethal every turn, given that Glory didn't know her hand. But now I think it's slowly slipping away. I mean, we're looking at top deck Bon Samdi into Amet, I think, is Patra's only shot here.
This is kind of interesting, actually.
How so?
Like, was the Boom actually the best play?
Were you looking at Elysiana?
I was looking at even just shield block Harrison.
Yeah.
Like, because what if Patra dropped, like, I don't know, Amet 1-drop that turn? What does he do? He's got no minions. And what does Boom do? It actually just gives you armor up less often. And I'm not saying it was super bad, but I think that was not an automatic Boom turn in any way.
I think it's not an automatic Boom turn. I think it was correct for a couple of reasons. I was considering if he should slam down the Elysiana on 9 to counteract a Bonsandi, of course, or an Amit. But I think the reason is that he can have a pretty strong read that Patra's hand is not Amit and 1-drops, because that would have happened already.
Okay.
You know, she just passed the turn going into Boom. She would absolutely have played that turn the turn prior. And if Bonsandi was to be played, she has Shield Block and Shield Slam and the armor from Boom to get rid of it anyway. And so I think, therefore, Dr. Boom here had all the bases covered in what can go wrong, and then in the more average game plan where Patra's just slowly playing out rubbishy minions, Boom just absolutely locks it out. But I agree, it was not the easiest Boom I've ever seen.
I just don't want people at home to think, oh, just play Boom, because it's like, well, if not on an empty board, I think you'd rather have minions a lot of the time.
Oh, trust
me. But I
me.
think the Shield Slam and Shield Block in hand did help.
Yeah, we don't want anyone to think we're Boomers here.
No, I like, just who cares about the hero power, getting stuff on the board, and it's getting closer and closer to Patra just having no way to win this game.
Yeah, Patra.
And again,
there's nothing.
What's really funny is even a cleric draw then would have actually been okay because of the pyro and the heal.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like one cleric
Fair
draw,
point.
even
Fair
that
point.
turn, she wouldn't have been 100% dead.
Okay, maybe it's not 100%.
But I just mean if cleric was drawn exactly that turn, and Patrick can say draw a deck and then go Amit big.
Like being able to top seat one of the Tomb Wardens to swap it, maybe allowing her to kill it with Wild Pyromancer, is obviously something.
I was just thinking of getting a few cycles off of heal. Draw like 5 cards.
Right, exactly. In combination with the cleric,
yeah.
could have got her there to go Amit, bunch
Let's
of
go.
stuff.
Yeah.
Oh. Glory looking like he's considering just shutting down
do
that
it.
opportunity as well. Is that better than Tomb Warden hero power? I feel like it's not.
I feel like it is, because it would make me laugh more.
Is this a Super Collider face turn? Oh! This is how you assert dominance. This is a 5-1 score play.
Boop. Okay. Patra looks like, nope, did not get the cleric, and that is going to be game. Glory takes it 1-0 with the warrior over the priest, and again, it's just more levels of, we didn't really see the hard tech, I'll say. I guess the one plague versus, because there's 2 plagues in this list, so I guess one of the plagues got played. So I guess we see some level of that. But the warrior continued to be pretty good versus priest. Maybe it's not worth the ban, but my worry is if there was any other deck, the warrior gets a win and then you just lose one versus priest is a bit of a problem. But anyway, Glory takes a win over there and gets his warrior out of the way. But he's got one more win to get if he wants to continue this very, very good score in Grandmasters Season 2. Stay tuned. We'll find out if he can get the job done.
Wait. We're still doing another one of these? Even with the plagues out there? All right. Greetings, Junior Explorers. Are you ready for adventure? I sure hope so. I'm Ryan Collins, and I'm here to send you out into the Tombs of Terror. The Tombs of Terror sound completely and utterly horrifying, but you're gonna be totally 100% fine. I'm not going, though. No way. You may have heard about those nasty plagues in Old Doom. What you may not know is that the League of Evil unleashed them to destroy the world, and in the process, let loose some seriously mighty mystical beings. And that's where you come in. Tombs of Terror will follow the format of previous Build As You Go adventures. You'll be fighting a series of random encounters and improving your deck as you go with more cards and fantastical treasures. Not only that, but you'll be accompanying the best of the best. That's right, Rand Bronzebeard, Elise Starseeker, Reno Jackson, and Sir Finley Mergleton, they're back. And these legendary explorers have a few new tricks in their wide-brimmed hats. For this momentous occasion, each of the 4 explorers are dual-class heroes, fully representing the strengths of 2 distinct classes at once. For example, with Reno's recent experience with magical artifacts, magic! He's able to sling spells as a mage and use some of his old tricks as a rogue. You'll be able to build your deck with cards from both classes, creating new and exciting combos as you go. Want to deliver a massive druid swipe into your opponent's face with Prophet Velen in play? How about activating rogue combo cards with mage spells? Deck building rules are out the window. Again, With the League of Explorers by your side, I can 110% guarantee that you will be totally fine. Early reports have informed us there's even a nice tavern out there in Uldum where you can relax, modify your deck. I'm not sure who would be running a tavern during such chaos.
Nice.
At the start of your adventure, you'll get to make another choice to help shape your deck. You'll still choose a starting deck and hero power, but now you'll also have your own collection of signature treasures for each hero. Signature treasures are special cards suited to each explorer that you'll be able to unlock as you play. As you progress, you'll unlock even more powerful signature treasures, giving you a steady flow of new options. So while Reno Jackson may start off with his trusty hat, he'll eventually end up with the Gatling Wand, a powerful instrument of magical might. You may find that some signature treasures are better suited to your playstyle than others, and that's part of the fun too. With your group of explorers fully equipped and ready for action, Tombs of Terror will bring you through 4 chapters of tomb diving goodness. You'll fight a wide assortment of villains, mummies, a bunch of water-toting murlocs. But you're really here to take down these Plague Lords. Plague Lords are the physical embodiments of each of the plagues. They range from a monster made entirely of murlocs to a living form of rage itself. These are huge enemies to tackle with enormous health pools. As they take damage, the Plague Lord will change phases, switching hero powers and strategies to become even deadlier. You might be worried about your chances, but I assure you, you'll be safe. Not only are you a well-trained explorer with cutting-edge equipment, but Plague Lords actually have persistent health pools. So if you show up, go face for 100 or 200 damage, and then get smashed, don't worry. The next time you fight that Plague Lord, that damage will still apply, allowing you to whittle them down if you need to. Although Plague Lords are the purest embodiment of evil we've ever encountered, we're certain that... Look, I can't do this. These guys are doomed. Get out while you can. It's not gonna work. But no, you'll be fine. Everything's fine here. Once you defeat all 4 chapters, you'll unlock the finale, which is... a delightful mystery. Good luck out there, explorers. And if you manage to get yourself mummified or worse, please don't come back for me.
Is Glory going to continue his stomp through Grandmaster Season 2? We're about to find out, because he's doing well so far, currently 1-0 up versus Patra, and he is going to be playing, I believe, his Shaman versus Patra's Warlock.
Yeah, a matchup that we've seen a few times here so far, and it's felt, pretty back and forwards. I feel like the matchup, with it being Zoo Warlock and Quest Shaman, of course, is pretty dependent on what the Zoo can do, because interestingly enough, while I would say Zoo is kind of the poster child for consistency in Hearthstone, the fact that it runs so many 1-drops, what I've realized more and more these days is that it's actually feeling remarkably inconsistent. It's feeling like a very high power level deck at the moment when it hits the right curve. But for the most part, if it doesn't find the curve of a bunch of lackeys or, destroying an egg for early pressure, finding the Thrasher into the Vulture, a lot of the time it just falls down in terms of its power level. Whereas it feels like, to me, the Shaman is a little bit more consistent because of all the redundancy effect it has in its early game battle cries that generate lackeys, the Mogu, which allows it a little bit more aggression early on as well to fight back for the board. Yeah,
it's weird, right? Because, for example, Patra's list specifically is just running 1 Sea Giant, which I think is good in itself. 2 versus exactly Quest Shaman would be fantastic, of course. Yeah. But this card in Patra's hand right now, Disease Vulture, I think this card alone gives Zoo some mid-range game. And enough mid-range game as well. It only takes Disease Vulture, a Flame Imp on a live tap, and there's a decent board out of nowhere. And it's pretty sick. Crystallize obviously could be used to the same extent as a Flame Imp. So I think the early game of Zoo is definitely less consistent, but I think the deck as a whole still holds just that it can almost always get something done.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Because it beats every single minion Shaman has, right? In terms of Zoo plays bigger minions than the Shaman every single time. So, in general, as long as Patra can put stuff on the board, I think she's going to be able to stay ahead. My worry would be the havoc that a Mind Control tech can play. Because often, Zoo is not an archetype that can just say, oh, I'll just play around MCT all game. It's like, well, no, you kind of need minions to do stuff.
And that's where I think the Zoo has to be very careful. It's a difficult matchup to play this one, despite Zoo, again, kind of being the poster child in a lot of people's minds for an easy Hearthstone deck. I think in this particular matchup, like you said, it's very difficult to know absolutely everything everything you have to play around, you have to keep in mind the fact that you want there to be few minions on board for Mogu Flesh Shaper, but also lots of minions on board for your Sea Giant. You want to have enough to be aggressive, but not so much that you're playing into mind control tech. You want to have the right sized minions so that their Wasp can't zap away the 3 health on it. I agree with you. It's a difficult matchup. Yeah. And can go very wrong. But one thing I definitely agree with you on is that Vulture feels like the cornerstone of this matchup.
Yes.
Oh. Because when you coin it out, there's literally nothing the Shaman can do to kill it off.
And we double crystallize a live tap. I'm ready. I'm ready. I do love this Vulture card. I hope, because I just love Warlock as a class in Hearthstone. I feel like it's, apart from Hunter, has been my favorite class throughout Hearthstone history. Overall, and I hope next expansion Warlock just gets a sprinkling of extra spice, and it's just the class again, because I love it when Warlock's good.
I just want them to put Defile in the classic set. Like, I know Defile was way overtuned and was a ridiculously strong card. It just allowed control styles of decks to exist, and I love these control Warlock decks. I think they're so interesting.
You know what hurt me the other day?
What hurt you the other day?
I was watching Zele's stream, and his
that
board...
That would hurt the best of us.
I think he had 6 or 7 minions, and his board health by the end of his turn against Warlock was literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I was like, there's a Defile somewhere here, and then no one laughed because the joke was bad. But really, I was upset because there can't be a Defile here, because Defile is not in standard anymore. One of my, I think one of most people's favorite cards in terms of actual mechanics in game.
Yeah, I think in terms of design, it was such a brilliant card. But yeah, Warlocks for the moment, as we can see, are pretty much forced into a more aggressive style of play, given that their removal is a little bit lacking outside of Plague of Flames, but the deck doesn't seem to quite
Quick shout out to the America's Grandmasters. If you do like Warlock, check out ETC or Monsanto's matches this weekend, as they are playing the Mechathune Warlock, which gets very interesting. But getting back to this board, Patra did play a Crystallizer, so not going through anything completely, like holding everything back for this Vulture. But next turn, Vulture coin Crystallizer is an absurdity in terms of power level.
That's right, and I think I liked Patra's play of not going coin into Vulture because of the fact that it was very weak to exactly Wasp. The weaponized Wasp would have been able to clear it off very beautifully, and then she would have been left stranded with a couple of Crystallizers in hand, whereas, like you said, now she has a lot more ability to get that rolling.
And what's really funny is by clearing up this board completely, Glory has ensured that Patra can play around MCT for another turn.
Yeah. Despite being a Shaman, I think Glory is not all too happy to see the Witch's Cauldron there, because he knows he just wanted stats on board to contest the Vulture.
Okay.
Whoa.
Oh, and there's nothing he can do about it.
There is absolutely nothing.
No, there's nothing he can do about it.
Unless there's nothing he can do.
Would it have to be like the second mutate into X?
Yeah. It's like
something?
Corcoran or something, yeah.
Welp. And there's Solarium next turn for Patra. Oh, Vulture's so sick.
I agree. Very powerful card. Oh, yeah, even Zap there wouldn't have got the job done.
You think this is a Solarium turn?
I think you could just start with a tap, right? Like, you're looking for exactly Flame Imps at that point to activate the Vulture, whereas I think Patra already has a very powerful turn, and Life Tap already gets around the 3-drop.
I was just thinking if she hits Sea Giant, there's only one in the deck, as I mentioned. But 3 draws, like I think there are a couple of really good ones, but maybe it can be held up for turn.
I think that would likely be very good next turn as well. I see your point though, that while she's ahead, she wants to do the most disgustingly powerful stuff.
Just go insane, especially after seeing mutates. Like then you're not really as bothered by Mogu either. Well, okay, one good one, one bad one. That's fine.
Yeah.
Good target for our Evil Genius.
That's true. I think that's the first time I've ever seen the
2/2
Golden Scarab being played. Yeah.
I saw it played in Reno Mage because there are a lot of decent forecast. So you know, polymorph and stuff.
Conjurer's Calling.
Buff?
Yeah. Strict buff to Conjurer's Calling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we're talking about Battlecry Quest Shaman here. Its only AoE board clear is Sandstorm, one of which has gone, and of course Mind Control Tech, nowhere to be seen.
And this is the one thing I feel that holds this deck either back or in check, depending on what your ideas of the power level of the deck, is that, for example, the hand that Glory's had would be sick versus a slow deck, because the double novice is like the only card draw you run, which is normally you run out of cards versus slow decks, right? But any other cards apart from novice would be so sick in this matchup, because Glory just wants the stuff that does something and doesn't generate, like, or doesn't just draw cards. So the double novice was actually a problem versus double of almost any other card in the deck that was playable. Would have been huge.
And, you know, Glory did get a little dollop of unluckiness in this game, it's fair to say. The Witch's Cauldron was absolutely dreadful. And, of course, he didn't get a lot of the, I suppose, some of the good cards that you want in the matchup, like Mind Control Tech or Weaponized Wasp. But at the same time, you know, he got a Sandstorm Elemental, he got a decent curve at the start of the game. It wasn't that bad of a hand.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a good one. It's a good enough of a one, however. I mean, what does Patra even do this turn? She's got so many options now. Does she ever have lethal? Like if she taps and finds Grim Rally. Wondering if she can like attack him with the Worgen and then attack again, or self-damage it. Like if she generates a Cobalt Lackey, if she can zap her own guy.
The Worgen's always worth a trade into a 1/1, right?
Yeah.
That's always worth it.
I'm just wondering if she finds a self-damaging effect.
Your presence offends me.
She does need to be a little bit careful though. This is not so simple of a do whatever you want as long as it's proactive and you'll win turn. It's close to that. It's getting closer to that now as she's getting better and better cards.
Okay, well the Spirit Bomb's probably going to be played this turn.
I think so.
Gotta be quick though.
Yep, she just got to keep moving through it.
Just do stuff, just do stuff, just do stuff.
Time and time again from different GMs that doing something is better than nothing. We've seen the rope be a burden.
Go for the trade with the Worgen either. And the dog missed 2 damage.
Oh, and that could be huge! Glory could have found his way back into this game. Hero Power Sandstorm. That's his whole turn. But honestly, that might be good enough.
With the trades?
Yes.
There's a so the Vulture dies, the Worgen dies, and the 3/4 dies.
Left alive.
Yeah.
This is the disaster for Patra. By floating 3 mana there, this is a Nephicet Thrasher that could have traded in. And she missed the damage through to face.
Oh, Sea Giant. So close, but so far.
And again, while I said at the start of the turn, it's not as easy as just play all your stuff and it's good enough. Making a suboptimal turn where she spent all her mana and got all her attacks in would have been far superior to that. It's not even close.
And again, I honestly think there are arguments for and against, obviously, second Sandstorm Elemental.
Yeah.
Fine. But like the attack with the Worgen could have done more damage, right?
Yeah.
Could have traded a 1/1 and hit face for even more damage than it did. So it could have pressured a little bit more. Oh.
Yeah, there we see the visual bug with Titanic Lackey that's creeped its way in this.
Somebody didn't listen to the messages in the Discord.
But interestingly enough, talking about just making sure you get all your attacks in and stuff, one thing that's kind of made me prioritize that style of play of just doing anything is, interestingly enough, starting to learn StarCraft for the first time recently,
yes.
where I'm realizing it doesn't really matter what I do. It doesn't matter what units I make or whatever. As long as I'm spending all my stuff and always doing something.
Lesson 1.
Right, exactly. That's the best thing you can do. And I was focusing on the complete wrong stuff at first, like counters, build orders.
Fancy.
Right, just spending all your stuff is generally good enough. And
you will beat many players by just spending resources more than they do.
Exactly. Like my APM is dreadful, but at the end of every game, it's resources spent. And for Patra here, it's a similar concept, right? Just making sure she'd done something there would have been so much better.
So now so let's look at Patra's list as well. Patra isn't running Soulfire, isn't running Leroy. So she has to be much more aware of the board than some players who are bringing Zoo. There's 11 damage. I wonder if this is all face, play the Genius, play the Sea Giant.
That's not possible.
in Go, isn't it?
I don't think so, right? Because it adds a minion and destroys a minion, so it would still cost 3.
Oh, right, because you
I
can't
right?
think. No.
Yeah, yeah.
I was thinking like if you played the lackeys as well, I guess you would have to get the thingy lackey, right? The faceless.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, you are correct. Oh, then you run into board space issues. No, I think you're right. If you got exactly faceless
Right.
lackey, but
Regardless, I think playing the Sea Giant is important. I think you actually go face. Or I like the face attack. Actually, gonna trade. And this, what this
would have been
does,
a lot of damage.
it defends the board and kind of semi-protects the Sea Giant, of course. But it doesn't do any damage to face, and I feel like Patra's hitting the point where she needs to end the game.
So that was 10 damage she cleared off the board. 10, 11. Hero Power Life Drinker would have been exactly 1 off of lethal, which is a huge distinction. That's obviously incredibly far from dying to Hero Power Life Drinker. So maybe she should, but then that of course means if she is hit with Hero Power Life Drinker, that heals Glory up out of range, which means all of a sudden the Nephezet Thrashers can never attack again.
Right. It's a little bit tricky, isn't it?
It seems baffling to me.
Because like my worry was, well, where are these 5/5s going to go that's really going to slow you down? If they go face and you lose, fine.
Maybe,
but if they trade, where are the trades? Because the trades kind of suck, right?
Maybe she should have done
especially on that board.
I mean, I think Patra's close to the point where she has to do Evil Genius her Thrasher here.
Evil Genius the juggler, right?
Well, she can't hurt us. She can't take any more
I
damage.
guess.
The 3 she's taking every turn is huge.
Well, because there's a second set of 5/5s on the board is a problem, right?
Yeah.
Because I think this is worst case, isn't it? Oh, she can evolve it now.
She can evolve the 8/8, which would purely give her a 10 drop, right? Because there's no 11 drops in the game at the moment. I believe. I think if there's no 11 drops in the game, it gives her another round of 10 drops.
I thought it did nothing.
Oh, it does nothing.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
Patra
why.
thought
That's why
the
I was.
same as me.
No, that's why I was paused. I was like, wait. I didn't want to question you, but I'm pretty sure Sea Giant does nothing because.
Well, I guess we both learned something
Sea
today.
Giant's not a 10 drop, right?
It is a 10 drop. That's why it didn't evolve, because there's no 11 drops, right?
No, sorry, yeah. Because it's a 10 drop, it doesn't evolve. That's what. Yeah, sorry.
Right.
We confused each other there. But yeah, I was sure Sea Giant did nothing.
Oh man. And
that's
Patra, in a somewhat embarrassing for me as well as her finish to the game here, goes down to 1-6 now on the overall record. And I have to be honest, I thought that game was absolutely over. I did not see a way for Glory to get his way back in there.
Yeah, I think the only real point, I actually liked how that game was played out for both players. I think Glory definitely had a rough start with just Novice Engineers, good for the value and getting through your deck, of course.
Yeah.
But playing 2-mana 1/1s against Zoo
Yeah.
is a very swift road to death, from my experience at least. But the only point I can think of was the 11 damage to face, putting your opponents like 6, and having an 8/8, I think an 8/8, a 5/6, and a 6/4 or something on the board versus the 2 5/5s. Were those trades bad enough after seeing the elementals?
Yeah.
Were they bad enough to make Glory do either bad trades? Well, we would have to do bad trades, or he would die. And I think that's the position I would want to put my opponent in. Of say, you either do these weird trades, have an insane draw of something, I don't even know what at that point, or you just die. And there's like no good option for Glory. But I think the trades made it so that, well, now there's only an 8/8 on the board. And I think out of all the decks at the moment, Quest Shaman has great answers to like single threats. They can taunt with Titanic Lackey. They can do kind of a crazy amount of damage with a Lackey plus a Wasp.
Yeah.
Suddenly an 8/8 doesn't look so hot when one minion deals 6, and so on. So I think that was the choice point. Whether that would have led to a victory or not, we don't know, because we can't go back and relive it and change the outcome. But anyway, congratulations to Glory, though. He's looking pretty good this season.
Yeah, nice win from there. He's getting closer and closer to that point where I think we can already firmly say he's pretty much has no risk of elimination at this point.
I believe
whatsoever. Even in the absolute worst case scenario.
Yeah, I don't want to 100% commit to it, but from my cursory knowledge, I believe going this score means that he is almost certainly safe.
So he's at 6-1. So the worst
You'd have to
possible
lose
score
every
he could
other
go
game.
to is 6-8.
Yes.
And even then, that would put him only at like a tied record to Patra now if she wins literally every game
single game
from here.
Yeah, and then everyone else also as well, right?
And I think what is much more likely in an account is that this is getting closer and closer to Glory guaranteed to get in that top 4.
Yes.
Given that he's pulling further and further ahead, Tom, the only player who it feels like can really catch him at this point, as it's kind of an interesting race at the top there. But for Patra on the other side again, just that step closer towards relegation, she's going to have to pray that something. Oh, actually, I was going to say this. I was about to say she'll have to pray that something goes wrong for Blitzchung. However, there have been some very nice posts on Twitter between the two of those where Patra was, really rallying on Blitzchung and saying, it happens when he was downtrodden by his series of defeats that he's had in Hearthstone Grandmasters. She was being a fantastic sports person in how she was approaching that, which I think shows that, even when these players are right down at the bottom, they're still not being all too aggressive towards each other, not hoping that the other player does poorly.
Well, everyone's in the same boat, right?
Exactly. Fantastic attitude.
They know how each other feel and the pressures all of them are feeling when it comes to Grandmasters. But let's move on to our next match. We have